Peace be with you. Greetings to the Diocese of Southwark and friends at Southwark Cathedral. I am Archbishop Linda Nicholls, Primate of the Anglican Church of Canada. I have fond memories of visiting with you at Southwark Cathedral, both during the Lambeth Conference pre-visit in 2008, and again last December when I was able to preach at the Cathedral during Advent. I'm grateful for this opportunity to offer a reflection on this strange and challenging time in the life of the Church through our experiences here in Canada. Although we had been visited by the SARS virus with serious consequences in the early 2000s and are always aware of the strains of flu viruses circulating, COVID-19 caught us by surprise. Some 8 weeks ago, provinces across Canada began to lock down travel, stop business activity, and insist on severe physical distancing requirements. 1 week I was taking a full train from London, Ontario to Toronto. The next week there were 6 people in a car for 60, and the next week the local trains were canceled completely. Our national office shut down and all staff are working from home. All churches are closed for gathered worship. As school terms finish, graduation ceremonies cannot take place. No weddings can take place. And funerals only at the graveside with less than 5 people present. Hardest hit have been our nursing and retirement homes for seniors. Once the virus arrives, it spreads rapidly amongst the elderly with devastating results. Now, no one is allowed to visit relatives in such a home or an intensive care unit, and people who are ill die alone. Schools, universities, and colleges are closed, and parents are being asked to juggle homeschooling, including online connections, with their own work if they work from home and managing daily life. Stresses are very high. Indigenous communities in Canada are deeply worried. For those who live on reserves, the living conditions are difficult. Lack of health care, overcrowding, sometimes a lack of consistent clean water, and significant populations of elderly people with underlying conditions make them highly vulnerable. Just as the arrival of settlers in the 17th and 18th centuries brought measles, smallpox, and other viruses or bacteria that wiped out thousands of people, this virus could devastate a whole community. Many reserves are self-blockaded, no one in, no one out, to try to keep the virus at bay until a vaccine may be found. Such an all-encompassing disruption in our lives invites us to reflect and to learn. We are all learning new skills, such as Zoom or Skype, and other online platforms have become familiar to staff and clergy. Online worship is being tried, meetings, Bible studies, even recently a seminary convocation. Some are energized by the demand for creativity and the opportunity to engage people who would never darken the door of a church building. Others are exhausted by the mental strain of everything new skills, new attention required, and the lack of familiar patterns of relationships, habits, and ways of working and being. How much of the change will need to become new permanent habits? We are being called to reflect on the impact of the virus and what it is telling us about our social values. We have discovered that the people most needed to sustain our daily lives are the most undervalued. Grocery store workers, farmers, truckers, personal support workers, hospital cleaners. Now we need them to put their lives on the line for us. We see the interconnectedness of all people worldwide, and know that through the rapid spread of this disease and its impact, we see the tension between a strong, vibrant economy and the value of human lives. especially those on the margins? Which values will take priority in the future? What kind of society will we become? We are discovering how many people fall through the social cracks very quickly, and our government and programs, our government aid programs are small band-aids. Many people are out of work, and the government has rapidly put in place emergency resources, but it will not prevent small businesses from closing permanently, and many, like those in the arts fields, have no resources. Canadian bishops have recently come together with others to advocate for a guaranteed basic income for all Canadians to avoid these gaps and their disastrous consequences. We are being invited to discover afresh where God is, not only in the building of the church, but in the midst of God's people, wherever they are, at home, online, in the grocery store, at the hospital. We're being invited to face fears of illness and death for ourselves and others, standing on the promise that nothing can separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. We are being invited to discover that God has not abandoned us in this crisis. God is seen in the faces and actions of those making meals for those in need, sewing face masks for frontline workers, bringing groceries to the elderly in the community, supporting co-workers' mental health while in isolation. We're invited to reflect on new theological questions. For example, the appropriateness of an online Eucharist is a lively question amongst our clergy. We are invited to discover that God's call to us to care for creation is being answered through our discomfort in staying home, that we do not need to travel as extensively as in the past, and that the planet can recover if given the space to breathe. We're invited to slow down, pay attention, pray, and listen to God. As my own life has slowed down, I have new opportunities to listen, to watch spring emerge around me, to rest more and pay attention to the inner spiritual shifts within me, to engage in activities that nurture my spirit in music and creativity. I am deeply aware of the need for courage and hope as we face the future. As Christians, we have that hope that is stronger than death through Jesus Christ. With it, we can face whatever lies ahead with a steady confidence and courage found in community together. Thanks be to God.